Hi, it's Davina. I'm in my sword t-shirt and yoga pants to be nice and comfortable. And I'm gonna make a really tasty dessert that looks super fancy, but is actually totally a cheater sweet. We're going to be making tiramisu. And tiramisu is Italian. It came about sometime in the 1960s. And basically, it's layers of coffee-soaked ladyfingers or sponge cake, and some form of creamy filling and coffee. Sometimes coffee is mixed in with the creamy filling. So this is not the traditional, because usually you'd have mascarpone and whipped cream and sugar and stuff like that. I'm making this easy. I do have ladyfingers, but if I didn't have those, I could have just used a vanilla cake. I've got Jello Cook and Serve that has a microwave set of directions, and I've got leftover coffee. I'm also lucky in that I have some amazing hazelnut espresso vodka. But if you don't want to use the alcohol, you can just flavor it with some vanilla extract. You can even find cream de cocoa extract. So if you're making this for kids or something like that and you just don't want to have the alcohol, you don't need to have a whole bottle of booze. You can just have a little thing of flavoring and add that in. So I'm gonna make this and tell you how long it takes. All right, so that's the base, and I've got a coffee pudding and a bit of a gap here. I'm gonna actually pop this in the freezer and just defrost it before I fill it with the cream and serve. All right, it's time to finish up this tiramisu cake. Now, I actually gave it a day in between putting in the bottom layer and putting in the top layer, mostly because I had used a cook pudding for the base that I made with the coffee in it. If I had gone with instant pudding throughout, I wouldn't have had to do that, but I needed to bring the temperature down on the lower level. And in fact, because I'm going to be putting this into the freezer and holding it until later, I actually put it into the freezer after it came down to room temperature to solidify that up. But you don't have to. If you use instant pudding, like I'm going to do for the top layer, you can just make it all in one day. All right, so cooked pudding usually takes, if you're using the microwave directions, 8 minutes, where every 2 minutes you're giving the whole concoction a stir on high so that it's boiling and such like that, and then you pour it into whatever you're gonna serve it out of, and you have to let it cool, usually a couple hours, because all that heat, it doesn't help with the solidifying effects. When it comes to instant pudding, it's about 2 minutes of mixing, and then you have to wait 5 minutes for a soft set, 30 minutes for a stiffer set. So I would like to put a whipped topping on top of this and then some sprinkles, but I think that might it might be something that I do just before I serve it, if I'm going to be using like a fresh Swedish cream or something like that. Now you can use one of those indestructible whipped toppings that come out of the freezer section that are a dairy-like product, and that you could just put on top and pop in your freezer, and when it comes out again, it will be exactly the indestructible thing that it was when you put it on. So what I'm going to do with mine is I'm going to actually stick it in the freezer, and then just before I serve it is when I'm going to put on all of the whipped topping and sprinkles. Okay, I've given it the time that it needed for the instant pudding to set up. So now that I've done that, I've got to figure out how I want to finish topping this. Now, this is nice and full, and I could just leave it where it is and maybe sprinkle on some cocoa powder. And how you do that is you just put it into a little strainer and then tap the strainer. It's these little details at the end that really make the simplest desserts look like $1,000,000. Now, you could also do, chocolate little curls or sprinkles, but sometimes people put whipped topping on top. So I'm gonna pull that out next. Now, if you don't have a pastry bag, you can make your own out of just a regular zip top bag. Use a little twisty tie to make sure that it doesn't go up that direction, and then simply cut off the end. Now, if you cut it straight, you're gonna end up with sort of an oval, but I've heard that if you're careful about it, you can actually make sort of a petal or a star shape. So I'm gonna try that first, and if it works, great, and if it doesn't, then I'll figure something else out. My cream seems to be a little bit thick, so I'm gonna have to make this slit bigger. Make sure you didn't get any plastic in there. That's bigger than I expected. You know what? I'm just gonna pipe this out, and then use the spatula to smooth it. Yeah, that's my plan. It was a good try, but my whipped topping ended up being thick. And of course melted where it touched my hands more. Okay, let's try this a different way. Okay, let's see if I can get a nice little slice. Okay, that's it. One nice little slice of tiramisu. Okay, so let's try it out. Let's try the coffee pudding layer. You can definitely taste the coffee in that pudding. Okay, the next layer, I actually did a combo of vanilla and white chocolate. So let's try that out. That's nice. Still getting a little bit of coffee from the layer of ladyfingers that had been dipped in the coffee misks. So let's try them all together. One big bite. Oh, this is fun. This is really fun dessert. Now the bottom coffee layer is actually a little bit more frozen than that top vanilla layer because I had put it in the freezer to make sure it was really stiffened up. And this will be a nice frozen dessert. It will also be good if I pull it out of the freezer and then transport it somewhere. Now, do you have to do a big old springform pan? No, you could do a square pan or something smaller. I just happen to have a springform pan, and I decided that it would be easier to get the slices of tiramisu out of a springform than other dishes. But you could always put it in a glass-sided dish and kind of spoon it out more like a parfait kind of dessert. In fact, the techniques that I used on this you could totally use for like a fruit parfait. If you didn't want to have the coffee and the chocolate and the vanilla, you could always do vanilla, ladyfingers, and bananas. If you want to do more of a vegetarian or vegan, you can do a banana custard and a coconut custard instead of the milk in the pudding. So yeah, I think this is a success.
Tiramisus, parfaits, all these are some of my favorite no-bake desserts. So I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope you try it out in the future, and have a great day.